Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Extra Point here on KLAA. And as always, I'm your host, Roland Rainey, joined with my fellow colleagues, Jeremy from Indiana and Justice from New York. We are moving along in the NFL season, but boy, I tell you, there's a lot going on. So let's just jump right into the quick snap recap right out of the gate. Bengals versus Ravens, 41-17. I do not believe a lot of folks out there thought that the Bengals would rout the Ravens the way they did. Burrow, Jamar Chase is starting to really grow as a tandem. What's your guys' thoughts about that game?
Well, I think that game was going according to the script people thought, with a 13-13 score at halftime. Then the Bengals just totally flipped the script in the second half, scored 28 straight points and said, no, we're putting our foot down. So a big game with two very different tales according to each half.
Yeah, this was a dominating second half performance by the Cincinnati Bengals. Like you said, Roland, I don't think anyone was expecting this kind of beatdown on a Ravens team that has looked excellent so far this year, despite all the injuries they've had. I thought the Cincinnati Bengals defense really handled Lamar Jackson well. They contained him. They didn't let him make big plays outside the pocket or in the pocket for that matter. So this was a great overall team win for the Bengals. And my God, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, they are a tandem to be reckoned with.
Hey, they're making it happen out there. Then we had the Bucs versus the Bears. The Bucs really just take care of business with the Bears, 38-3. Not a whole lot to say, with the exception of old man Brady is just putting in work this season. We'll see where the Bucs end up as soon as they get into the playoffs. Then we got the Browns versus the Broncos. Look, this one is very intriguing to pull back the layers on. The score on that one was 17-14. Look, the Browns have a lot of injuries. Baker Mayfield may, get this team where it needs to be. However, the Broncos have a lot of issues. Fangio met with a lot of folks in the front office just recently to discuss the path forward for the Broncos. But I tell you, there's a lot going on there. Is the quarterback the right solution right now? Look, they got a lot of injuries. But I want to throw a stat line out there for all the Bronco fans to really soak in. So here's the stat line. Go back to December 11th of 2016. At that point, the Broncos were 8-4. Now, 75 games later now, these guys, ever since that moment, are 27-48. Let's put that into context. They are 27-48 with an overall winning percentage of .360. Now, let's go back to the head coach again. Is it the head coach? Is it the structure? Are they drafting the wrong players? Are they putting the wrong pieces together? What is happening with this Broncos organization?
Well, if anything, I think it starts with leadership from top to bottom. At that time where you throw out that stat, Denver was going through a transitional phase when John Elway stepped away from being the team president. So I think the guys that have come behind him have not lived up to expectations. We certainly know Vic Fangio has not lived up to expectations. Yeah, the defense is good at times, but the offense, they have not been able to solve any quarterback problems. They have not been able to keep up in an AFC West division where there is a ton of firepower now. I mean, they have got to right the ship because they are easily the last team in that division, and they're going to be there for a while, it looks like, with Justin Herbert emerging for Los Angeles, Mahomes in Kansas City, and Carr even in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Jeremy hit on the biggest issue with the Denver Broncos, and that's the quarterback situation and the Broncos' inability to fill that situation. You think about Case Keenum. They signed him right after his Vikings run, where he, seemingly took over that Vikings franchise and brought them back to relevance, and he did nothing after that. And then they go and draft Drew Lock, who has not lived up to his expectations thus far. He's inconsistent, and we saw that in college at Missouri. And then we look at this past draft with Justin Fields. They passed on him because they trusted Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, and Mac Jones for that matter. So I think it's just been that inability to really lock in that franchise quarterback, and they're really paying for it. And like Jeremy said,
Well, I tell you, there's a lot to unpack there, not just with the Broncos, with the Browns also. They got a lot of injuries to get over. There's some players, like Odell Beckham Jr., just have not produced, a lot of injuries. We'll see what comes of it. So then we also have the Patriots versus the Jets. Look, the Patriots, believe it or not, are, some folks are saying contender, but when you look at how they are playing lately, Mac Jones is doing a phenomenal job of going through the maturation process of becoming an NFL legit quarterback. Patriots take on the Jets 54-13. I see this look on Justice's face on his Jets. I'm sorry, Justice, you got to take that one for what it is, my friend. The Jets got a lot of things to figure out. Then we have the Seahawks versus the Saints. Okay, Saints take care of business 13-10. However, for everyone listening out there, me and my colleagues have had a very, very spirited debate lately about what in the world is going on with the Seattle Seahawks. Is it the coach? Is it injuries? Is it an awful defense? Or because Russell Wilson is not there, is it the quarterback play? Now, I have very strong convictions about what I think is going on with the Seattle Seahawks, at least at this very moment. But I'm going to hand this off to Justice because we go back and forth on this one. Justice, that's the score. Saints end up winning that game, but I'm going to focus here on the Seahawks. What is going on with the Seahawks?
I mean, the biggest thing is Russell Wilson's injury. That's what it is. He's carried this franchise for almost a decade now. So him going down was going to bring this team down. We all knew that. But also, this defense has been awful. I mean, they played well this past week. They did their job. They held the Saints to, I think, 13 or so points. They did a great job holding down that offense. But you talk about Jamal Adams, who is the highest paid safety for some reason in this league, and all he can do is attack the box and look lost in coverage. So I think it's just that entire defense. They're giving up points left and right. Geno Smith, we've all had that, debate. Is he the guy? Should they go elsewhere? Look, we talked about Cam Newton. I mean, he's a big name. He's proven in this league, but I just feel he doesn't fit the system. I feel like Geno Smith, he's been there for 3 years. Just ride it out. Rush should be back in a week or two. And just, pick up after that.
Hey, look, I hear you loud and clear. And look, Cam may not be the answer. Hell, right now, I don't think nobody in that organization is the answer. I mean, I might want to suit up right now and play better than Geno because right now, this guy has had 3 opportunities, 3, to really solidify his name out there and put them in positions for game-winning drives, and he can't get it done. Just can't. Jeremy, I don't know. Am I being overly critical of Geno here, or is there some other things to point at with the Seahawks' woes?
The correct answer is all the above there, Roland. Yes, I think you're being a little critical of Geno Smith. As long as he can be a steward of that offense, I think he's doing his job. I think we all know that Geno is not going to go out there and win games for Seattle. He is the guy that's there to make sure we don't turn the ball over and facilitate this offense. But what Justice kind of hinted at this, and I'm going to go real deep here, it is an identity crisis for the Seattle Seahawks. When they were going to Super Bowls, they had a great defense and a strong running game. Since then, they have tried to transition to this big explosive offense with Russell Wilson. There's nothing wrong with that. But in order to do that, they have sacrificed quality on defense. They have sacrificed quality in the run game. Super Bowl teams that win do all 3 things well. They are not doing all 3 things well. They are giving up draft picks and spending an absurd amount of money on a guy like Jamal Adams, who had, against the Steelers, had a ball come right at his face, and he could not catch it. He wasn't even aware the ball was coming. There are so many more issues, and it's an identity crisis. That's why I think that the Seattle Seahawks are going to continue to struggle. They need to reinvent their defense, get some good talent out there. Bobby Wagner can only carry that team so far. Future Hall of Famer, by the way.
So with that being said, should they go out in the offseason and acquire a quality backup quarterback, just in case something like this happens again. Because right now, you mentioned identity crisis, but I think what we can peel back is everything offensively is Russell Wilson. And it is showing its ugly head right now. Hey, yes, you got Metcalf, a big target, a big threat. He can make things happen. But if you can't get him the ball, then he can't make things happen. And Geno can't get him the ball. I mean, you got Lockett, big time receiver. Same thing. If you can't get him the ball, he can't make things happen. Hell, you got Freddie Swain, who when he's in, he's an effective person to put in the slot and cross over the hashes to get across. Same thing there. If you can't get him the ball, he can't be effective. So with all that being said, and there's a carousel in the backfield right now, and they're trying to figure that piece out. So you're absolutely right. I think there's an identity crisis, but right now for me, Geno Smith has had the opportunity to prove himself a name, and he has failed to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our quick snap recap here on the Extra Point. So let's dive right into it. It is a major talking point, and that is the Deshaun Watson trade talks about going to Miami. Look, there's a lot that's involved here. His investigation is still hanging out there. You got the NFL commissioner who is heavily involved in this process, and there's a lot of uncertainty here. What's your guys' take on Deshaun moving forward with his career in the NFL?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is I feel like the NFL has really kicked the can down the road here right up until the trade deadline. They waited till the last second to, for this to be a big story when they could have addressed it all offseason where they said, no, Deshaun Watson's going to be on the commissioner exempt list. We're not going to let him play this year while his legal troubles ensue. And I think that's the biggest problem with a potential trade. Miami has come out and said that they would like to see something done with these legal issues. The problem is I just don't see that happening. There's 22 different cases here. 10 of them are alleging criminal charges. So we all know the justice system does not work very quickly. I don't believe this is going to get done in time. I just feel like, if they would have started working on this deal in the offseason, yes, we're going to go get Deshaun Watson. I don't think you're going to see something happen here last minute with his legal future still up in the air. Miami wants that situation cleared up. It's not going to get cleared up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I came in today thinking that this Deshaun Watson thing would be wrapped up pretty quick. But, Jeremy, you make a great point. The biggest issue is this legal case right now. The NFL is not going to put him on the exempt list because they don't have enough evidence to do so. And the Miami Dolphins don't want to make a move until that situation is cleared up. So you got two sides really here that are really butting heads. And, it's going to take some time for this to get resolved. And, with this trade deadline coming up, I thought Deshaun Watson would get moved. But with this ultimatum here with the Dolphins and the NFL and them searching for more evidence, I think he's probably going to stay on the Texans for the entirety of the year. We'll ride this out until the offseason in 2022, and then he will eventually be moved, probably most likely to the Miami Dolphins, who have been the most interested. They have the most ammo to go up and get him. Deshaun Watson has expressed desire to be there. There have been reports saying lately that that's probably his top team on his list, so the Miami Dolphins, I think, will be the eventual suitors for Deshaun Watson, but I think that happens this offseason. He stays put this year.
So, no, Justice, you make a point, and I want to talk about this, and it would be interesting to really get this topic out to the audience, and that's the fact that Miami does have capital. They have things that they can use at their disposal to go get Deshaun Watson. Having said that, my question, and I've really been thinking about this lately, do I want to spend this draft capital? Do I want to spend, a lot of financial resources to go get this guy that might end up being a headache for me legally on the back end? Or do I take this capital and restructure offensively and defensively next season?
That very question, Roland, is why Deshaun Watson is still on the Houston Texans right now. It's because of that legal issue that he is not moved. Teams are afraid. Teams don't want to invest draft capital into a quarterback, they don't know when they're getting back on the field. If this thing rides out to the end of this year, and even, to next year, and he ends up on the commissioner exempt list for 2022, that's 2 full years you don't have a quarterback for your team, and you're pretty much going 2 years without multiple first-round picks and such. So this legal battle is really what's holding this up. It's definitely going to drag on some more. It's going to be interesting when this, legal issue gets resolved, but it's definitely going to be pretty much impossible for Deshaun Watson to be moved this year.
Well, hey, a whole lot more to unpack there. This one here is going to be one for the record books, in my opinion, and here's the reason why. Because now you have the NFL commissioner involved. He is kind of mediating this process because there is some, not just a legal ramification on the civil side, but there's also some ramifications from a NFL conduct side. So what does all of that look like, and how is the commissioner going to help negotiate a potential trade here? So a whole lot more to unpack there. I want to talk about Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. There's some Mahomes, I'm going to call it the Mahomes woes right now. Is he doing too much, or is there something else to look at? Because let's be honest, the Kansas City defense is giving up points galore. I mean, at a bare minimum, averaging right now 23 points a game. They are giving up a lot of points. And it's not like there are slouches on that defense. There are some legitimate players on that defense. So what's going on here? Why can't they rekindle that excitement that we all are so accustomed to with the Kansas City Chiefs now?
Well, I think it's a few things, Rowan. The defense is a big part of it. And because the defense is giving up so many points, the offense can't get in the rhythm that they are used to being. When Patrick Mahomes and this offense is going, they have plays scripted that build off other plays that have been scripted. They have plays where they show you one thing and do something completely otherwise. You don't see that type of cohesion and rhythm this year. And I think you can make the argument that every single quarterback is a rhythm quarterback in the NFL. When you're playing well, things seem to come to you. When you're not, you've got to try to find a spark. They are not finding that spark. I think that's a big part of it. They've had some injuries in the running game, so they've had to have some different guys in there. But just overall, because this defense is a sieve, they're giving up so many points, they have to go into this offense where they have to catch up so quick. There's no threat of a running game because they have to get so many points. I mean, we saw it this past week. Tennessee was up really quick, and then all of a sudden, the Chiefs had to become this super pass-happy offense where play action was gone. That's the other thing. Play action has been a big part of the Andy Reid staple on this offense. You're not seeing it right now because play action is not effective. No, when you're behind, you're not worried about them running the ball. You're worrying about that explosive play to Travis Kelce down the middle, to Tyreek Hill going deep. So there's a lot of big things here. There's a few issues of why Mahomes isn't playing well here.
Yeah, the reason this Kansas City Chiefs team is 3-4 right now is because of the defense, and I don't think it's any other thing right now. I mean, they're giving up points at a historic level. Yes, Patrick Mahomes has 9 interceptions through 7 weeks, and it's because he's doing too much. It's because he has to do too much. So it's really this Kansas City Chiefs defense that's really holding back this team right now. I don't think it's offense at all. Yes, they had a historically bad week last week, getting beat 27-3, I think it was. But up until that point, there was only one team in history who averaged more points per drive than the Kansas City Chiefs had so far this year. So I think this Kansas City Chiefs is still the Kansas City Chiefs offense it's always been. I think Patrick Mahomes is fine. I think the offense is fine. Yes, they could run the ball a little more, to establish some balance. But I just think it's Patrick Mahomes doing a little bit too much because he's behind and he's forced to do that. But the real issue is this Kansas City Chiefs defense. But I will say, I won't write off this Kansas City Chiefs team as a whole yet because we saw it a few years ago. This defense was pretty bad heading into the playoffs, and they turned it on, Steve Spagnuolo and that, staff, and they really turned around that defense. So I would say give it some time, let them make the adjustments, and let's see if they can do that. But, yeah, it's definitely a concern right now.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear there, and I do believe that no one should write off the Chiefs just yet. If one thing that we know about Andy Reid and that coaching staff, they will figure out a way to make this thing work. So more to come on that, and to keep our eyes on. Last but not least, we got to hit it because I think nobody saw this coming. The Arizona Cardinals, are they the true bona fide Super Bowl contender, one, but two, are they the true best team in the NFL right now?
As of right now, yes, the record speaks for it, Roland. The offense is explosive. The defense is making it tough for other offenses. They've got the best record in the NFL. I don't see that changing anytime soon. They've already beat half the teams in their own division. You know, the toughest division in all of the NFL, you know, where you got to play the 49ers, you got to play the Seahawks, and you got to play, and of course I'm forgetting the other team, but I mean, the Rams, they play the toughest teams in their own division twice a year. They've already beat them all once.
So you're saying that the Arizona Cardinals right now, and I'm gonna throw a bone to a certain fan base out there, are they better than the Dallas Cowboys? Or are they better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Forget about the actual record. Are they better than those two teams?
I think so. I think the Cardinals have deserved to be called the best team. I think they performed the best from an offense and defensive, perspective. I mean, I think Kyler Murray has made a great case for MVP. I think Derrick Henry, our running back, is right there next to him, who has played phenomenal. So I think the offense is clicking, the defense is clicking. They've done a great job of stopping the run. Minus that week 2 performance where Dalvin Cook went off for like 183 on the ground. But, on all cylinders are clicking right now, and they deserve to be called the best team.
Well, I tell you here, there's a lot of debate, but to your point, the proof is in the pudding. And they are trouncing on teams. Absolutely phenomenal work by that entire coaching staff. But more importantly, Murray is proving that he can be a top contender in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us here on The Extra Point. On behalf of my fellow colleagues, Jeremy from Indiana and Justice from New York, I'm your host, Roland Rainey. Looking forward to seeing you back here next week on The Extra Point.